How you doing, Piper?
How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for joining us tonight. Give it a few minutes. I had the university's or system is messed up, and I have to go all over the place to figure out how to get you guys notified.
Okay.
I'm proud of myself. But it may look different from what you normally get.
No, everything looked the same to me.
Does it? Okay.
So,
It's odd. I see things from such different streams as you guys, and sometimes it's hard to discuss what it's even about.
surgery went okay, I'm assuming?
Yep. Yeah, it's slower than I expected, but
Okay.
I got 2 more weeks of predominantly rest,
Mm-hmm.
and then gradual build up of activity. So it's it doesn't seem like it should be. You know what hurts the most is watching a comedy show. I'm like a Big Bang freak.
All right.
Last night I was about I was about to kill myself laughing at it.
Hurts to laugh.
Finally had to change stations.
I understand.
Get some drama and get some death and glory stuff. How's you closed up school?
Today, summer's officially started today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes. Good to be here.
Where do you teach again?
I am a exceptional children's resource teacher. I'm special ed.
Whereabouts?
I'm sorry?
Where at?
Bill Hefner Elementary here in Fenton.
Okay. I had someone from Bill Hefner years and years ago. We used to divide interns up by geography.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be darned if I can remember her name, but she was great. I really like Bill Hefner. Has it been the same principal for, say, the last 5 or 6 years?
The principal that's there now is Don Cahill, and I think this is his 4th or 5th year.
That may still be tall, older.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah, I was always really impressed by it. It was
Okay.
cool. It was a nice place to visit. And not the best part of town, but it always
Not the best part.
nice.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting a haircut. Excuse me, he's off. DJ was getting a haircut on live TV there for a second. Mark, good evening. Gary? Heather? Bailey? Got just everybody coming in. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes. Nobody's still in school now, right? Mark, you're out now? Can't hear you.
We are out finally.
So if you're out, everybody's out, right?
I hope.
Yeah. I saw the buses rolling through Charlotte yesterday, headed to the big bus lot. They all look very happy. Okay. Let's go over a 6:01, and I have a 6:05 town meeting at 7, so which means I need to give myself 30 minutes to get everything set up for the next thing. So let's go and get going. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to hear everybody's out of school. Hope you're going to the beach or somewhere good for at least some part of this summer vacation, or somewhere better than that. I do have a couple of announcements. I'm a little concerned about what's showing up in Blackboard in the different possible places. So I don't see what you see, so it's hard for me to figure out whether you're putting in the wrong place or the right place, or because when I see your work in the course show at Blackboard, I don't see what it was loaded for. So I see marks as 1 through 4, because some people like to turn them in as a whole big group, and then ask me to find the part. I don't know which one it is unless you specify. So I need you to look at your grading list and figure out if you're missing stuff. People's discussion boards look good. I mean, they're for the most part, people are doing them. They're in the right place. It's easy to follow in the grade center. But when it comes to your ILMA work and what's known as SKIP work, it's harder to find, because we have the course shell in Blackboard, where I need you to just turn in your work, basically, so I can count it as done. That's more of a war of attrition than anything else. But then it needs to go over to the internship shell where we can get down to the nitty gritty. So plus in the course shell, there's also a place to load your piece for peer review, as well as where to load your piece for me to read. And they need to be in all those places. We need to get all the boxes filled. That sounds really tacky, but we do. We check off the boxes and make sure that we got everything done. Any questions? Have you looked at your own stuff and wondered what was going on? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. If you feel like yours are in the right place, that I've read them in the course shell and said they look fine, and you send them to the internship shell, and there I said, looks good, hold on till the final part, and you're in great shape. Okay? We can always go back and piece things in if we need to. All right. Anybody have anything that they need to bring up this week? Possible questions or anything? Okay. I enjoy the questions and the discussion boards in these classes because I think they're the sort of things that you don't think about until you have to be in charge and then you're responsible for it and then you wish you knew more about it. So hopefully we can hit on that some. Anyway, this week is due process. What is due process? What am I talking about?
Fair hearing for a student before any suspensions or administrative decisions.
Why does a kid do due process as a student in your school? You may know. I mean, as principal, I knew who the bad kids were, and I usually knew who was doing what and had a pretty good idea who was doing the wrong thing and could zoom right in and just throw them out and we'd be fine. Why did I need to bother with due process?
I think constitutionally they're almost given that privilege. I mean, you can't really, you have to go through a series of steps in order to place any type of judgment, even though you may know that they're guilty of whatever, they still have to go through a series of steps to protect you and protect their rights.
Right. It's not actually a constitution, but it is in effect property rights for kids. As they all right. Whoa. What was that noise? Okay. I'll stand back farther from the screen. Anyway, they're due certain rights towards their education, whether they realize how important it is or not, or how much time and effort they're going to put in or not. They're not held the same standard as an adult in that situation. If you were an adult acting up in class, I could ask you to leave, and that would be that. But a child is a minor and still has some rights in this world. Where can they go in your districts? I mean, I know what Charlotte-Mecklenburg has. What happens with due process? How bad can it get? What sort of things go on in a due process type situation? Anybody know? Who's in upper grades? Let's see, Mark, I know you are. Piper, you're 9. Kelsey, you're 9. Heavy, you're in high school, right? If a kid's thrown out of school long term, and it may be different in South Carolina, I don't know. But if, as principal, if I'm going to suspend a student for 10 days, what due process rights is he eligible for? You know?
They normally go in front of a hearing officer.
Okay, and he's independent of the school?
He works at the district office. He's the expulsion hearing officer.
Do you have many of those?
We have a lot of people who are suspended 10 plus days, sometimes over again.
Have you ever had the opportunity to go to a hearing?
I have.
What happened?
It was a drug-related charge.
Uh-huh.
And rather than suspending him further, they recommended an intervention
Oh,
that was through the district, through a place that deals with drug and alcohol addictions.
uh-huh.
And he had to go through a course of that to be able to come back to school.
Wonder if you ever did.
I don't know. I didn't get to go to a follow-up. But it was kind of hard to deny the charge because the superintendent actually is the one that saw him doing it.
Timing is everything.
That's exactly right.
Anybody else ever been to one?
It's good stuff. You should see one.
Yeah. In fact, if I could require it, I'd require it of all of you for the course. But I know there are logistical problems with that, especially in the summertime. But it can be tense and gripping because it's very important stuff. I think every system in the state now has an alternative school or has access to an alternative school. So that's always a possibility too of more than 10 days. But that's why it's a do right. Why is it important for you to know what to do?
Because we're going to be faced with it eventually.
Yep. Even elementary folks, I'm afraid, will run into the odd wild one. And what do we do now? And the first thing you do is you start acting like his father or mother instead of his principal, and you're breaking the law. And there you go, and he's still at school raising Cain. So you got to know this stuff, so you know what to do. Okay. Anybody? How many people have done their interviews with their assistant principals? I know I've read quite a few.
I have.
How many folks or tell me about folks who found student discipline to be the hardest thing to do in the job?
I think all of us.
They all should have. And why isn't it?
Because if you're not consistent, go ahead.
I was just saying it's super time consuming.
It is very time consuming because of the due process part. What else is difficult about it?
I was going to say, if you're not consistent and you vary on things and you change things for certain students, and then it really does, if there's no system in place, then it's not necessarily going to work.
What if one of the antagonists is an exceptional child, bound by different rules and regulations?
I didn't hear what you said.
What if one of the antagonists? We'll talk about fights. That's generally the long-term suspension stuff. What if one of the fighters is an exceptional child, certified or is an EC of some type, gets in a fight with a regular ed kid, and they're both found guilty of fighting? What do you do then? 10 days out?
After speaking in terms of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
In terms of EC being my position at school, after 10 days, that student is eligible for comparable services.
Right.
So any services that student would have missed after 10 days is made up. In some sort of contract that the EC, or I'm sorry, the IEP team would develop along with the parent.
Which takes what? More?
A lot more time. Yes.
What if he gets in another fight right away, right when he gets back? With
Manifestation meetings, and it just keeps on going.
So how do you stay consistent when you have exceptional children and regular ed kids in the same building, doing the same stuff, basically?
I think part of the problem with an EC student is that regular ed doesn't always understand that just because their crime was, we'll say crime, was the same, that the punishment's not always the same initially. And that you can't expose that.
And that's the key to consistency, is it's not consistent. It can't be. By law, it can't be. So then what do you do to make up for that? How do I tell Piper's dad that he's out for 10 days while Mark's back at school tomorrow? Because I can't say it's because he's an exceptional child because I'm flouting confidentiality law. How do I deal with that? I'm acting like there's an answer. There really isn't. Not one that I came up with in 14 years. Kind of took the tack that if I just treated everyone as if they were an exceptional child, I'd be better off. And the kids would be better off too because we'd pay more attention to their behaviors and their needs.
Have you ever dealt with where you have an AP that interprets policy and holds policy, but then you have a principal that wants to do it differently, and you get inconsistency between two administrators?
Probably me. I would have APs who were ready to cut someone's head off, and I was usually a little more on the lenient side. We actually decided on a way of approaching it that satisfied both my APs who were all cutthroats. No, not really. They were great people, but stricter than I am. And me was that they always told kids and parents when they were suspending them that they could appeal to the principal as part of due process. And us and me had agreed on a plan of how to approach that, so that yeah, we can reduce that suspension some if parents are willing to do this, or the kids are willing to do this instead. So that allowed my naturally lenient side to blossom, and allowed my admin team to feel like they had been heard and said what ought to have been said all along. Did we ever completely reconcile it? Probably not, but we did pretty well together for 4 or 5 years there, in a tough place too. I mean, we had some of the highest suspension rates of any school in Charlotte Mac, which is saying something. But we constantly look for ways to work with those laws. But I didn't want to be seen as the person, and they didn't want to be me to be seen as the person who would just change a decision on a whim. So we tried to create a system by which we could arrive at those changes that we thought might be constructive as well. Okay?
Yeah, that makes good sense. I guess some of the things I've seen in my experiences is sometimes you get people that kind of cuts the knees out from under their assistant principals because and a lot of times it has to do with policy. One's trying to follow the policy and the other one's trying to, I don't know, make friends or something. I don't know what they're trying to do. I always said you're a teacher first and a friend probably third or fourth, but just trying to kind of navigate the waters a little bit.
Yeah, and thinking about it in advance is wise. I like this section because I'm convinced it's way more complicated than rocket science to try to faithfully execute student discipline in a school, and trying to keep it fair, watching out for your own biases, whatever they may be. Believing the girls couldn't have done something like that, whatever. Plus, I also firmly believe, and I'm going to throw this out there, who is discipline for? Discipline decisions, who are they for? Are they for the kids involved? Or someone else?
Do you mean the written discipline policies, or?
No, when I suspend a kid 10 days, is that designed to help him become a better student, or does it have some other purpose?
I think a lot of times it has the purpose of maybe helping out a specific teacher.
Sometimes it's in the interest of the teacher.
Or the students in the classroom.
Or who? Students?
The students that are the other students in that classroom.
Or in the school, yeah. That's who I really believe discipline's for. Mostly because most of my students were tough. They were real tough. And there's no punishment I could have assigned that would have actually done what punishment says it does. The definition of punishment is a noxious behavior that results in the curtailment of another behavior, right? And how many people know that suspension works for the children who are suspended? If you do, you're probably in the wrong profession, because it doesn't. So don't pretend that it does. You know? I mean, there's no reason for me to go announce him. Well, he'll never do that again. I just suspended him from school. And he's at home partying. He's right where he'd rather be, under my command. So that's why discipline is so difficult. You can't be consistent, really, because the different apply to different people. And punishment doesn't really have an effect if you're looking for it. Okay, anything you want to add?
I think in elementary school specifically, sometimes I think people want to hope that a suspension will somehow hold a parent accountable, because now the child is going to be at home instead of at school. And they're hoping that will somehow, since we're inconveniencing the parent, that somehow something is going to make a change. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I know half the time those kids are just staying at home playing video games, so they're really not thinking about what actually occurred and their reasoning behind why they were sent home. But I think people hope that, hey, let's start inconveniencing the parent, and then maybe they'll step up a little bit more and start controlling some of these behaviors. But I'm sure that's not necessarily what's actually happening from the discipline.
That's what I was going to ask, was whether or not anyone else has issues with when the school is consistent with the policies and the child is suspended. It's only going, it's kind of a rhetorical, but it's only going to work when the parents become involved in the discipline. And as she said, and correct, when they're inconvenienced by the discipline. Our school has a tendency to allow the students and parents to be able to choose discipline, which I'm against, when they receive ISS. Because they don't want to go to ISS, they're able to opt out of ISS and go home for 2 days, or the number of days they were in ISS. And then they come back, and because they can't be counted for zeros, you're having to give them work so that they can go back and do it. So they got 3 days out of school. It's not counted against their attendance, and then they get to redo the work. So it doesn't really seem like discipline in my eyes at all. Now, personally, with 4 boys at home, I have 4 sons. If they were at the age of 17, 16, 12, and 5, if they were suspended, promise you that we are involved. It's not something that any of them have experienced at this point. I think that we're very lucky. But I've seen a lot of situations where it's just a couple of days out.
And it's not 100% that the parents won't back it. It's just more likely. What's that 90? We follow the 90-10 rule. Actually, one of the things that we used to trade off on under the hearing was some parent time at school. Going to a couple of classes with a student. Well, we'll be happy to have him back and change the suspension to 8 days. If you can spend 2 days with us here with him in classes, you can choose which 2 days it is. That has some positive effects sometimes. Not too many, but some. Elementary people are really optimistic. When I was an AP, when I was an elementary, I was far more optimistic than I was when I was a middle school principal. So Lord knows where I would have been if I ended up at a high school too. Probably on Skid Row somewhere. Okay.
You know, it's funny that you was talking about that. High school kids are so smart about things. I had a kid tell me today, he said, you put me in summer school because I come to school and didn't do nothing. And he said, now I'm in summer school and you want me to come and not do anything while I'm here. I said, well, it does kind of seem that way, doesn't it? So
I always wonder why people got upset about kids being able to make up the work, because it's like, now, if they can do that work without being in your class, what's wrong with this picture? I mean, can I just fill in the blanks the first couple of weeks of school and then mail it in for the rest of the year? Do I already know all? What was the purpose in that? Handing these worksheets that obviously they could do on their own. So why do they need you to teach them? It's a real question, and they will ask you. Okay. Anyway, let's call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. If you get into your grade center and think, this doesn't look right, or I remember putting this in, or I remember putting that in, send me an email so we can chase it down individually for you and figure it out before it gets too much farther in the semester. Hopefully everybody's about at a level of OMA 2 by now, if not a good solid OMA 3. If that brings fear and loathing to your heart when I say that, and then you're nowhere close, then it might be time to rev it up, and I'm glad school's out because you got nothing else to do. So time to write evidence. You guys have a good week. Enjoy the first week off as much as you can. Okay?
I have a question real quick.
Sure, Kelsey.
About the peer reviews,
Yes.
how many are we to do this semester?
I've heard a bunch of different numbers. I'd like to see at least one done on each piece.
Okay.
Okay? At least one.
Yeah. One per task?
One per task, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes
What if you have more than one person in like your group?
just split them out. So do one person in your group. Just for
Okay.
like, try not to do the same person every time. But
Okay.
I don't really want to police that if I can help it.
Okay, that was it.
I was the okay. You guys have a good week. I'll talk to you next Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Good night.